All right, we are live. Back at you again with the Chatterbox with yours truly, King Jacob. And I have a special guest, Miss Consandra Wright. And we're going to be talking
Hello.
about, some things that she went through with recently losing her son. So I'm going to let her introduce herself to you guys and so you can get familiar with her. Queen Wright, you can go ahead and tell them who you are and what you do and all that good stuff.
First of all, I want to say thank you for having me on here. My name is Cassandra Wright from Cincinnati, Ohio. Um, I go by Lady A the Doe, in fact. That is my personality name. I am a graphic designer, videographer, content creator, radio personality, and CEO and host of WDOE Media. And I run a podcast where I do interviews with people from all walks of life, entrepreneurs, artists, actors, filmmakers, anyone you could think of on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. That's it.
All right. All righty then. So we're going to be discussing the loss of her son and how it happened. And so we're going to go through a lot of the details and we're going to get started now. So we're talking about your son, RIP to the king, Mr. Robbie Wright, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if you can take us back on, how, things transpired, like from when he first, went into the juvenile justice department, when he was under their care and he was under their custody. So let's play back to when he first went in.
Okay. When he first went into this facility or the first one?
The first one.
Okay, so I really haven't told this part of the story yet, but I guess I'll start here. Um, how my son ended up locked up in the beginning, I let my son go stay with his dad for a little while. You know, he was cutting up in school, and his dad thought that, he could handle him. So he asked me, like, could he come stay with him and that, he would get him in order. And I refused at first. I refused um, because I'm going to be completely honest. I didn't think it was the best idea for him to go there for specific reasons. I'm not going to, do any of that. But so I finally let my son go stay with him. And, the complaints grew, but this time it was from his dad. And his dad was like, well, he's still acting up and this, that, and the other. I don't know what to do and this, that, and the other. So he was still there. But one day I was working and I received a phone call from my son's father and said that my son had did something to his daughter, which was my son's sister. And so I immediately go over there, and they had called the police on him. His dad had called the police on my son. After they never told my son what they were. First it was an attack against my son. His dad just attacked him. He didn't really tell him what he was attacking him for. He just went back there and started beating on him. And then my son, kind of swung to get him off of him and jumped out the window to get away from him. And from there, from the words of my son, he said they had like the whole street chasing him, and then they called the police eventually. So when I got there, they asked me to take the little girl to the hospital for her to be checked. And the police officer said that I couldn't take them, but she sent my son with me. So I asked my son, like, do you know what's going on? He said no. So I explained to him what was going on, and he was like, why would I do that? Like, that's not something that I would do, and it's a lie. And I didn't know what was going on. He just started beating on me and this, that, and the other. So going to the next day, his dad called me and said, are you at work? I said, yes. He was like, well, I'm about to go to your house. I was like, don't go to my house, because he had already threatened my son or whatever. I was like, don't go to my house. He was like, I just want to apologize because I took her to the doctor and, they said nothing was wrong with her. Nothing they couldn't detect anything being wrong with her. She hadn't been touched. And he was confused. He was like, I'm mad. I'm like, well, why are you mad? He was like, because they talking about they don't know what's going on and this, that, and the other. I was like, well, did they find any signs of her being tampered with? He was like, no, that's the problem. And I'm like, well, what are you mad for? Like, he was like, I don't know, but I need to go apologize to my son. Well, eventually they dropped charges. They didn't press charges on him, but the county picked up the case. So me not being able to afford a lawyer, he had a public defender, and everyone was telling me this public defender was like the best and everything, and she was representing him. And they had no evidence. The medical records showed she hadn't been touched or anything, but they felt like they really, really had a case. Now, so he's going through court and everything. I fast forwarded a lot, but he's going through court and everything. And it got to a point to where, we were going to court for a really, really long time. And the public defender had told my son that if he took a plea, then he would be able to go home. And that, he wouldn't have to register, and they would drop his charges down to an SB. Okay, so first of all, they had 3 counts of rape on him, and she told him that he would come home, he wouldn't have to register, and that he would be put in a facility, like a group home, outpatient group home, where he can get like therapy treatments or whatever for like 6 to 9 months. So him believing her, and without any feedback from me, because his public defender has said that neither me or his father could talk to him to try to persuade him not to. He was her client. And at the time, my son had just turned 14. So she was saying, like, he was her client.
Time out.
Uh-huh.
Time out. Technical file on play. Okay. So you're saying that this young lady went to the doctor, hospital per se, and they find no DNA, no tampered with. So after they find this, the whole case should have been shut down, dropped, thrown out, correct?
Yeah.
Because they found nothing at all. Okay, so
right.
then the state of Ohio picks the case up. Is that correct?
Yeah. It was either the county
Okay,
or
the
the
state of Ohio
state.
picked the case up.
Hmm.
Okay, and so they picked the case up, but for what? When there is no evidence, there is nothing that else that you can say if medically it's nothing there.
Well,
So did they pick the
they,
case up because he was
they were going off the statements from the girl, her sister, and her mom. Now, they said it was 3 counts because it happened on 3 different occasions, right? So when my son went there, like they lived all the way on the other side of town. It was so many inconsistencies within their statements, but they were overlooking it. Like, okay, they said once it happened during spring break. Okay, they had 2 different spring breaks. My son's spring break was different from hers. You know what I'm saying? And then, I don't know how often, because I didn't live there. I don't know how often no one was there, but they kept saying that the girl's statement would continuously change. And the way that she was answering questions, it was as if she was being coached, because the words she was saying wasn't the words that a
mm,
child would say describing things, you know, and
uh-huh.
so, even so, they still decided, like, okay, well, we gonna pick up this case or whatever. But you already know what that's about. Um,
Of course.
that's how they try to get us anyway. But fast forward to the day that he takes the plea. Well, the first time,
Hmm.
he had been in like juvie or whatever while he was going to court. He wasn't home. He was in juvie while he was going to court. And one
Okay.
day, like, his dad had stopped contacting us. He had stopped checking, because I have another child by him as well. And we were once married, but he had stopped
Mm,
contacting them altogether or whatever. So one day he was like, I want to go see him, but he couldn't go see him without me. So during that visit, he had no idea, even though they were the ones that called the police on him, he had no idea what my son's charges were. So when he found out
mm,
what the charges were, he flipped up. He flipped out. He was like, he didn't even, how somebody just blurt out something when they get mad. Like, he got mad, started pushing chairs and stuff like that. He was like, he didn't even do anything. And me and my son looked at him like, and my son looked at me like I told you. But he sat down and I was like, so what do you mean? Like, he's sitting in here, you know, he's sitting in
mm,
here for something, and you just said he didn't do anything. And so after we left, I drove him to drop him off somewhere, and I was like asking him, like, well, what was going on? What's going on? Tell me what's going on. He was like he didn't do what they said he did. He didn't do it. I know, you know. And so I couldn't figure it out to save my life. Like, why would you, if you know something, why not come forth from the very beginning and say something? You just gonna let your son just sit here and rot in juvie and not say anything. But that's neither here nor there. So, he's going through court. He's going through court. Now it's time for the day he's supposed to take the plea. Now, we knew he wanted to take the plea, but
mm,
we were trying to talk to him in order for us to kind of like tell him, like, no, don't take the plea or whatever. But during the time, he was on like seclusion, or he got in trouble. Let's put it like that. And when you get in trouble, you can't make no phone calls or anything like that. So that was
Right.
one way that he couldn't talk to us. And then his lawyer didn't want us to talk to him to change his mind. I guess she was just tired, you know. But that day he went, his father went to my son's public defender and told him like he did not do this. Like he don't need to take the plea. And she was like, well, you need to go
Right.
talk to the prosecutor. So he went to the prosecutor and he
Mm-hmm.
told her, she was like, I don't care, I have a case. And then it was time to go into the courtroom. And, you know, they were asking my son, like, before he took the plea, his dad yelled out in court, like, can I say something? Like, basically, he was the one that called the police and he found out that nothing happened and this, that, and the other. And they told him he couldn't say anything, but he blurted it out anyway. He was trying to yell to my son and tell him not to take the plea. But because he had been absent for
Mm-hmm.
so long during his time, my son, you know, first of all, they told him he was going to get to come home. And then second of all, you know, him trying to be defiant towards his dad because he was mad at his dad. Like, I'm going to take this plea anyway. They said I'm going home. But if I don't, then I'm going to be in here any longer. So he took the plea and they told him that they was going to try to get him into like a group home for treatments near home. But his probation, one of his probation violations was him being around kids 12 and under. So they said they couldn't send him to the one close to home. And
Wow.
he didn't get to come home. And they had found a place like in Cleveland. That's like probably like 4 hours away from home.
Mm-hmm.
So they found him a spot there and they sent him there. And that was when he was 14. The treatment is only supposed to take 6 to 9 months.
Right.
He was there, and because of, you know, what he was there for, of course, he had to protect himself because people don't, you know, they're not too light on people who are locked up for that. So he had to keep defending himself and fighting and everything. And every time he had a fight,
Mm-hmm.
it would stop the process of his treatment and it would start all the way back over. But so, you know, he just kept on defending himself. So he eventually got kicked out of that placement. Then he got sent to
Right.
Michigan. It's the same thing, fighting, defending
And what part of
himself, and this, that, other. Huh?
and what part of Michigan was he sent to?
Kalamazoo.
Kalamazoo, Michigan. Okay, then. Okay.
Kalamazoo. So he was there for a while. Again, treatment starting all the way over. So then he got sent to this next facility, which is the last facility. They would send him every time he would get kicked out, he would come back home to county. I mean, to the juvenile county facility here until they find another placement for him. So he came back here and they were looking for another place for him to go. He had to go back to court. So I was able to visit him, you know, while he was here. And then he had went to court and they said that they were sending him to DYS. And that's Circleville Juvenile Correctional Facility in Circleville, Ohio, near Columbus. and they told him
Mm-hmm.
they were sending him there. Myself, my best friend, and my daughter, and my daughter and son's younger brother went to go see him before he left, and that was actually like, I want to say like either on my birthday 2019 or the day after. It was one of those days, and
Mm.
but that was the last time I saw him alive. So he's in
Mm.
this facility. He was in the facility. It was rocky at first because now, like, the first two facilities were like schools. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't jails or anything like that. They were like schools. You know, kind of like a boarding school or whatever. But the judge wanted to
Mm.
make an example out of him and send him to jail because he kept getting in fights and stuff. So he go to Circleville, and that's like the jail, the kids' jail. And of course, he's still fighting. And now is is gangs there and things like that. So he's telling me every day that they trying to get him to join gangs and stuff like that, and he just wasn't for it. And just to tell you a little bit about my son, like my son, he was like extremely hyper, like super, super hyper. I'm talking about jumping, doing backflips off the roof, hyper. He did gymnastics. He loved to read. He was
Right.
very, very, very intelligent. Um, Loved Greek and Roman mythology, and just extremely intelligent. So, it was always hard for him to find his place because, he always wanted
Mm.
to fit in. And at first, he really didn't want nobody to know that he was intelligent because he felt like, he wouldn't be able to fit in. Um,
Be accepted.
but
Right.
yeah, but, my kid still grew up in the hood. So he still, he was kind of in between. And so he was there for a while, and, he was getting in trouble. And, it kept starting over. The program kept starting over, kept starting over. So eventually, he started to get his act together. So he would call me every day, and we would talk on the phone. He would write music, and he would, rap his songs to me. He asked me to play music for him and stuff like that. And he was on his level 4, which means he had all his luxuries. He was ready to come home. He had his own room and things like that. And he was just ready. He was just ready to come home. Well, um, like I said, we talked a lot. So fast forward to the day before, the night before he passed away. I spoke with him like 7:45, 8 o'clock, and um, we were just talking, and we were just talking about his birthday, what he was gonna do for his birthday, because for his birthday he was turning 18. And he was talking about what he was gonna do when he got out and this, that, and the other. And someone called me like on Messenger. So I answered on my laptop, but I was still on the phone with him. And you can hear the frustration in his voice or whatever. But he was like, "Mom, I'm gonna just call you back tomorrow." And I was like, "No, I'm good. I'm a I can talk. I can talk." He was like, "Nah, it's okay. It's okay. I'm gonna just call you back in the morning. I love you." And I was like, "You sure?" He was like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, I love you." And I was like, "I love you too." And I hung up. And that was the last time I heard his voice. The next day, I received a text message. to my phone like around 9:55, 10 o'clock, asking me to call the facility. And I called the facility, and it was the first day of school for my daughter, and it was also my baby sister's birthday. And I called the facility, and the lady is talking to me. I guess she was like the health director or whatever, and she was like, "Yes." She was just beating around the bush, like kind of like, well, it was a incident, but before I tell you about that, I wanted to ask you. She was something about my son said his grandfather passed away or some stuff like that. And I'm like, no, like I don't understand why are you asking me that? Like, and she was like, well, you sure? Like I will be certain if someone passed away in my family, like, you know. And she was like, is anyone home with you? And I was like, yeah, why? Like, and she was like, when the staff was passing out meds this morning, they found Robert non-responsive. And it went over my head because she kind of just said it nonchalantly or whatever. And so she asked me again, was anyone home with me? And I was like, my daughter's here or whatever. And then the second time she asked me, I was like, hold on, wait, what did you say? And she was like, the staff went to his room to pass out meds and they found him unresponsive. And I'm like, hold on, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? She was like, they found him non-responsive and they tried to do CPR and then they called the ambulance and the ambulance tried to do CPR and they pronounced him dead at 7:36 a.m. this morning. And I lost it. And I'm screaming, I'm screaming, I'm screaming. No one's home but me and my daughter. And she hear me screaming. And it's like the worst feeling to because she didn't know what was going on. And like that's her full brother. Like my other two sons are her half brothers, but you know, him and her, they have the same mom and same dad, so they share the same blood through and through. And for it was the most hurtful thing for me to have to tell her that. But I couldn't just be screaming and hollering and crying like this and just say nothing. And I couldn't say nothing because how would that make me feel? So I just had to tell her, and she flipped out. And I'm like, well, what happened? What happened? She couldn't tell me anything. No one knows what happened. Um, they're gonna do an investigation. I'm like, you can't tell me anything. Like, she's like, we don't know. And when someone finds out, I have them call you and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, how's it that they don't know like what happened? So I started to call all my family. My family started coming over here and my sisters are calling and talking to her and verbatim. This lady is explaining verbatim like what she said to me to them. So to me, it already sounded scripted. You know what I'm saying? And it was already a red flag when she told me they were waking him up for meds because he didn't take meds in the morning. So I'm like, it was just fishy. So me and my mom decided to ride up there. And on the way, the chaplain called me. And he was just basically telling me that he was a chaplain and that if I needed anything or needed to talk or anything, um, he would be my point of contact. So don't contact anybody else besides him, And then he asked me that I need prayer, and I'm like,
so over the whole facility that your son was in custody, Department of Juvenile Justice. So the only point of contact you can have when your son passed away is the chaplain. That makes no sense.
Yeah, that's what he
That
told me.
makes no sense at all.
That's what he
Yeah,
told me.
that makes no
And
sense. So that's definitely a.
when I asked him what happened, he recited the same thing that the lady, the health administrator, cited verbatim, like verbatim. They both said the same things out of their mouths, like the same exact thing. So he was like, "Well, do you need prayer or anything?" I'm saying, "No, my mama's a pastor, my dad's a pastor, my grandma's a pastor, everyone's a pastor in my family. We've been praying all day. I just need answers." So he couldn't tell me anything, and I was asking him like, could I see my son when I got there? And he told me that the oh, what happened? I don't know what happened. Hello.
All right, cause we're back. We're back. So sorry about that, folks. Had a little technical problem. So we're back. So Kathy, I think you was talking about when you and your mom rode up there and they told you the same thing that the chaplain told you, and you said that it all sounded like it was rehearsed from all parties involved.
Yeah, it was. The chaplain, I spoke with him and I was asking him, would I be able to see my son when I got there? And he said no, that the coroner had already took him. And I was like, well, where, can I go see him at the morgue or anything? And he was like, well, I don't know. You'll have to, I give you the coroner's number so you can contact him. I was like, okay, I'm going to call the coroner. I was like, but meanwhile, while I'm on my way up there, I would like to come and get his belongings. And he was like, well, he was like, why you ask the coroner, why you call the coroner? I'm going to ask them, is it okay for you to come and get his belongings? So I was like, okay, well, I will call you right back. I called the coroner, and when I finally get in touch with him, I tell him who I am, and I asked him, what do he think happened? He was like, well, I didn't see any signs of abuse from himself or anyone else, so it looks like natural causes. And I'm like, natural causes? He was 17 years old. Like, he was healthy. What are you talking about? He was like, I'm just saying, like, it didn't look like any harm was done to him. And I asked him, would I be able to see my son? He was like, well, no. He was like, well, no, he's been sent to Dayton, Ohio. So I'm like, Dayton, like,
No, hold back up, back
why?
up, back. Okay, Cassie, back up for a minute. So
Mm-hmm.
first of all, you can't see your son, and they giving you this run around this foolery like it was natural cause, and your son was healthy, just healthy. So, and he had no sickness. So, and they moved your son's body to Dayton, Ohio, without your consent.
Yeah, from one corner to another corner, because what he said was that county didn't have a pathologist to perform the autopsy report. So they will have to send him to Dayton to get his autopsy report. And um that basically well, I get into that part a little further down the story, but so I'm like, well, when can I see him? I was like, can I go to Dayton? Because I actually stayed closer to Dayton. Um, he was like, well, no, um, no, you won't be able to see him there. They have to do the autopsy and the toxicology report, and then once they do that, they will call for the funeral home of your choosing to come get him. And when he gets to the funeral home, then you can see him when he gets there. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, I hung up the phone and I called the the chaplain back. And he said, yes, it's okay for you to come and get his belongings and this, that, and the other. And Ohio State Highway Patrol is doing an investigation. So you might not be able to get everything, because they might need it for evidence or something like that. So I'm like, okay, we arrived, me and my, we put on our mask and we go inside the facility. And when I went to the guard, um, I didn't say my son's name. I said my name. and he looked like he saw a ghost. And he made a little call on his walkie-talkie, and like 7 people came out like in half a minute. So they were waiting on me to come. One had a big old Frito-Lay box. And they came out, and the director, he made a hand gesture towards the door, and he said, let's step outside. So it wasn't, let's go to my office, let's sit down, let's do this, let's do that. None of it. We stood outside the doors of the facility, and they just shrugged their shoulders and said, well, we don't know what happened, and you have my condolences, and this, that, and the other. And that was it. They gave me the box with his belongings in it. And we just left. We was there for less than 5 minutes. I didn't have to sign no papers. I didn't have to, you know what I'm saying? None of that stuff. Like, it was just strange. I didn't understand what was going on. And I just, from that point on, like when I got home, the chaplain called me. He was like, I just want to let you know that that the media is going to be on this. I'm just giving you a warning. I was like, I would like his medical records. He was like, okay, I'll see what I do and I'll give you a call back. I never heard from that facility again. Never. So I obtained the number to the corner where my son was being, where, you know, where the autopsy was being done. And I would call them, and they would tell me that the autopsy would take 8 to 10 weeks. So, you know, I'm waiting patiently, but, you know, I'm still trying to figure out like what's going on, because they still ain't tell me nothing. They still haven't told me anything, like nothing at all. And no calls from the facility, nothing. So we're waiting. I'm continuously calling the coroner's office where he was at. Now, 4 days later is when my son, when I was able to see my son at the funeral home. So that was the first time. And at first, to be honest, like, you know, I wasn't even sure if he was even gone or not, because, you know, I didn't get to identify a body or anything. The only thing that was reassuring me that he was not here was that he wasn't calling me, going off, telling me that somebody took his stuff. That was the only thing that let me know that he wasn't here. And then when I saw him at the funeral home, like 4 days later, his autopsy report still hadn't been released. I'm calling them, especially when that 8 to 10 week mark start approaching. You know, I was asking them, and they was like, well, no, we're not finished. No, we're not finished. So the autopsy report, he died August 31st. The autopsy report wasn't done until January 21st. January 21st. It wasn't done. But the thing was, like, even when they got done with it, like, first I talked to the pathologist. She said, I'm gonna call you personally when the results come back. And so I'm like, okay, I'm believing it or whatever. And the more and more I'm calling back, they was like, well, we can't call you when the autopsy report is done, because we don't make the decision on the cause of death. We just do the testing, and then we send the results to the other county, and they make the decision on what the cause of death is. So
Hmm.
so I had to wait on them to release the report. And my best friend, well, my friends, they drove me up to Circleville to get the autopsy report. And when I got the autopsy report, I couldn't open it and read it myself, so I let them do it. And when they opened it up, it said that the cause of death was amphetamine intoxication. They are in a facility. Well, let me finish. Amphetamine intoxication. The secondary cause is cardiovascular disease. And the thing was, like, my son wasn't prescribed amphetamines. Uh, so that was the big thing. Like, where did these drugs come from? Where did he get it from? You know, it's a pandemic. There is no visitation or anything. The only one who's there are the other children in the facility and the staff, you know. And so that was the big mystery, where the thank you the where the amphetamines came from. They can determine like what amphetamine it was, but what they're saying is he ingested amphetamine and it caused his heart to burst. And but it's a twist because all this stuff is like such a mystery, because they're saying like, okay, well, the amount of amphetamine that was found in his system was a small amount, and it wasn't enough for overdose. And not only that, the Ohio State Highway Patrol, they did an investigation. They did their own toxology report, and MDMA, an oil form or of MDMA, was found in his toilet. He's in a secure room. No other kids or anything can get in his room. Only one who can get in his room is staff and him. And okay, MDMA is the street drug Molly or ecstasy. So an oil form of Molly or ecstasy was found in his toilet, but it wasn't found in his system, and it wasn't found in or on anything within his possession. Not in his room, not on him, not in any container or anything. So that means someone had to bring it in there and someone had to take it out. Now there are like
Right.
the Ohio State Highway Patrol end up closing that case in March. They closed this case. They said it was they didn't find anything criminal going on, but I don't understand how can you not find anything criminal. And ecstasy was found in his toilet. Like, they just excusing that whole thing. Like, they're excusing the whole thing. They're not saying where the drugs came from that he ingested. They claim that they interviewed all the kids around him and no one else gave it to him. So the thing is, like, where did he get it from? That's what we're trying to find out.
Yeah.
But that's the main thing that they're not trying to tell us. They're not trying to tell us, one, where the amphetamine came from, and two, where the ecstasy or Molly came from that was in his toilet. They're not telling us that. They're excusing all of that. So I just recently heard from them, the director. They wanted to talk to me before they gave me the internal investigation report. And um, it was found that my son had been complaining about chest pains for quite some time. And he kept making appointments and they kept excusing him and they kept treating him for indigestion. And one time I was on the phone with him a few weeks prior. He was complaining about chest pains, and I asked him like, he was telling me like I have an appointment. You know, he was telling me not to worry, and he said I have an appointment coming here soon. So we were waiting on that appointment so that we could find out what was going on. Well, he had been seen but not tested or anything. They just treated him for like indigestion or something like that. And they say that he had another appointment for the 31st, but he passed away on that day. So their conclusion is because they were negligent on getting him to the doctor to make sure that he was checked out and everything properly, they're making a lot of changes to their medical staff. And that's what they were calling me for, to tell me that, because I had been protesting, like I would take people up there, like for his 18th birthday, his birthday April 1st. That was the day of the first protest. We made banners, we got balloons, the newspaper went up there with us, and we protested outside of the facility, and we released the balloons for his birthday and everything. And we came back home, and I say like a month later is when they called me, and they were just telling me about all the changes that they were making within the facility because of what happened to my son. They were changing, they were firing the whole medical staff. And they were making it to where kids couldn't receive like physical mail. They was gonna make a change on how they receive their mail, and through tablets and things like that. And they was just talking about a whole bunch of changes that they were making. I'm glad they're making changes, but at the end of the day, I was telling them like, I don't know what I'm going through. Like a lot of people don't. I don't.
That can't bring your son back.
I don't get emotional and stuff when I talk about it. I mean, sometimes I do or whatever, but I have a mission. I have a mission. I can't be out here weak and crying and all this stuff, and I'm sitting up here trying to fight these people, like, because something has to happen. Something has to happen. Like,
Yes.
somebody should be held responsible. I mean, I'm gonna tell you all the things that I feel about this. I feel like it's a cover up. I feel like they know what happened. I feel like they're just not trying to tell anybody what happened, and they think it's gonna be easy for me to just back down, so they could just sweep him under a rug and throw him away like he was nothing. I'm not gonna allow that to happen. That was my baby boy. That was my youngest son. He was to come home 2 months later after he passed. Like, he died August 31st. He was supposed to be home November 20th. And all he could talk about was being with family and spending the holidays with family and eating, because he loved to eat. Thanksgiving, Christmas, and then his birthday. That's all he talked about, is spending those times with his family. And he never got to do that. And for them to disrespect me by not being truthful with me and not telling me what's going on is it's a slap in the face. It's a spit in the face. And I'm not going for it. And they know that, because after that first protest is when they called me and would start talking about all the changes that they had been making and stuff like that. But I feel like it's a distraction, honestly, because they're talking about all the things that they're gonna change and everything, but they're dismissing the facts. They're dismissing the whole like reason why this stuff happened. Like, where did the drugs come from? The drugs that he ingested and the drugs that was in the toilet. Where did they come from? See, they don't want to talk about that, but how can you not talk about that when that's supposed to be the cause of death? That's what I don't understand. They trying to sweep that under the rug, and they trying to make these changes with medical, the medical staff and things like that. But I feel like they just don't want to talk. They don't want to touch on that subject, but they're gonna have to. They're absolutely gonna have to, because you can't excuse that.
So, Cassie, let me ask you a question. So they say they don't know how the drugs got into the facility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they check all the young people that's there, that's in their custody right now, but how many of the COs are the staff members did they interview? Because from what I understand about those facilities and any type of correctional facility, whether it's juvenile or whether it's adult, that a lot of COs bring those drugs in there all the time. Mm-hmm. To make their little extra money while they're, at work and while they're on the yard and whatnot. So is there any type of red flags that's thrown up for them to check the COs and check the staff? Because staff and COs can be very corrupt in those type of situations as well.
Yeah, I actually asked them when they called me. They were talking about that they had spoke with all the children and asked them, did where the drugs came from and everything, and they said that they checked their rooms and everything, and they couldn't find out. None of them had anything to do with it. I said, well, what about the staff? It was like, well, our staff, they have to come in through the metal detectors and things like that. I said, listen to me. You guys know the deal. I said, you work in law enforcement. There's other ways to get drugs in there besides your pockets and things like that. You do know that, being in law enforcement. She was like, yeah. I was like, so did y'all check the staff? She was like, only through metal detectors. That's not checking. She was like, well, we have a random search like every other month where they'll bring the K9s and check the cars in the parking lots and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's bull. That's like straight bull to me. It doesn't make any sense. So they were kind of just like prepping me for what I was going to see in the investigation report, which was it's screenshots of the video surveillance footage of the guards sleeping. They're supposed to do their rounds every 30 minutes. They wasn't doing their rounds like they were supposed to. They were sleeping or on the phone or just not doing their rounds at all. That was for the third shift. The third shift guard. And then the other guy who was there, he had been sleeping. And then, like in the morning, when the female guard got there, um, I guess she got there like around about 6 o'clock. She's supposed to immediately do her rounds and things like that and check on them. And she didn't do her rounds. And then she was to pass out breakfast. But when she got to his door, like she just cracked it and slid it in there on a little chair right there. She didn't even open up the door all the way. She just slid it in there, didn't cut on the light or nothing. Now, when you passing out the meals, when you checking them, you supposed to check for skin. You're supposed to see them visibly, and then if they don't respond to you, you're supposed to get their attention and wake them up to see if they okay. They wasn't doing their rounds properly. Okay, after she administered his breakfast, she finished that, and then she supposedly went for med call, and that's when she actually went in there and started calling them and shaking them and stuff, and trying to. She had to put him on the floor because he had been there so long, deceased,
Mm-hmm.
that he was in a state of rigor, like he was stiff and cold.
Mm.
And she
Mm.
she called for the other guy, and he went in there to try to wake him up. She called for him, um, so that he could try to wake him up. Both of them couldn't perform CPR because their CPR license were expired. It had lapsed. So then they had to go to the lady at the med window, which was not far from my son's room. And it's showing
Mm-hmm.
screenshots of the video surveillance of her going to the med room, asking this lady, well, telling her that they couldn't get him to get up. This woman, she finished administering the medicine to the kids that were standing there. Then she locked up. Then she walked over there slowly. Oh, wow, the guy who was in the room, he's standing in the doorway with his hands on his hip, just waiting on them to come over there. It's so much stuff. The response time is supposed to be 4 minutes. They didn't respond till 7 minutes. Their CPR license were expired. When the lady from the med window finally got there, she was trying to wake him up. She started doing CPR, and then they called the ambulance. And they didn't call Ohio State Highway until 15 minutes after he was carried out of there. So, but that's what we're dealing with right now. Um, Staff sleeping, staff not doing their rounds. Um, it's crazy. No one really wrote their incident report till 2 days later. Um, it's just a whole lot. I don't have closure. I'm not gonna stop
So,
until I get it.
right, right. So, okay, now, as far as you and your purpose, and I know that this is a greater purpose for you because this is your baby boy, but
Hmm.
it's also a purpose for you to grow awareness, to let these mothers know, because I'm pretty sure that across the nation you're probably not the only one that this has happened to.
Oh no,
And
not by
with that,
far.
with that,
I'm sorry.
go ahead,
No, I have
go
I
ahead.
have parents and grandparents inboxing me, telling me about how grateful they are by me, protesting and trying to find justice for my son, and not only that, other children that's in the facilities because they child, one lady, she said her child died in the facility and it was basically nothing she could do about it. And that hurt me to the soul because I'm like, how are your kids going to be away from you and die in a facility and you feel like there's nothing you can do about it? Absolutely not.
Mm.
Absolutely not. I'm not having it. And this other lady the other day, she inboxed me and she was talking about how her granddaughter, she's from New York, her granddaughter had an unauthorized leave from a facility. She bought some Benadryl, overdosed on the Benadryl, ended up in ICU. And when she got out of ICU, she went back to the facility and they started raping her. And then like some things happened to her other granddaughter, and she's trying to find justice. And they're reaching out to me, and I'm like, well, I mean, I feel like I have to do something about it because they're not gonna keep getting away with this stuff. They think it's and you know what's the most disgusting part? The most disgusting part is because we did um, a second protest at the facility, and this time we said that um, we were going to go up there during shift change because not many people came out. So we said we're gonna go up there during shift change, and it was we caught them. We caught them coming outside, but it was just disgusting because they kind of like turned their nose up. And, nobody had remorse. Nobody had no sympathy. Nobody, because I know they know what happened in that facility, and they're not saying anything, and that's what hurt. And to make it so bad, like majority was black. Majority of the people who was watching over him while he was in there during the last day or days of his life were African Americans. And you mean to tell me that y'all don't even have heart enough they don't even have a guilty conscience. I know if it was me and I knew something had happened in that facility and I'm still working there and this, that, and the other, I would have been said something. I don't care, fire me. Like, I'm not about to live with this on me. But they choose to do different. They choose differently. They want to not get sleep at night like me, because that's what it's done.
Right.
Like, I can't sleep. I'm full of anxiety. It's just it's a whole lot. It takes it takes a toll on you. Like, people see this. They see me talking, they see me engaging in this and other. I have a podcast. I do interviews every week, but when I get home and it's time for me to lay down and rest, I'm up. I can't sleep because I'm playing all these scenarios in my head about what could have possibly happened to him. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm seeing everything vividly, like this could have happened, this could have happened, like just seeing him, like, and it's scary. This stuff is scary. No mother should have to go through what I'm going through. And I'm going to devote the rest of my life to making sure this don't happen again. They just did this newspaper report the other day. You see that? I'm trying to get it. It says records hint medical delays in teen death. Right. So this came out the other day. That's my son. And it's basically it's just saying, like, it says after 17-year-old Robert Wright died in the juvenile detention center last year, it took 5 months for his family to learn anything about what happened. But the other teens who lived with him felt like they knew right away Robert was found. They knew right away. Robert was found dead alone in his bed, locked in his cell at Ohio Circleville Juvenile Correctional Facility in August. 5 months later, an report revealed he died from amphetamine intoxication with contributing congenital cardiovascular disease. Further tests showed the amount of amphetamine in his system was small, unlikely to cause an overdose, but the Department of Youth Service investigation into the death showed Robert had been bringing up an ongoing health concern. His family says it was chest pain. Youth specialists at the facility told investigators Robert had signed up for a health call around the beginning of August, but a week and a half passed and he was never seen. Robert had a nurse appointment on the 17th and telemedicine appointment on August 21st. On August 30th, a youth specialist heard another staff member leaving Robert's room tell the team, I'm not sure what's going on, but you need to sign up for a health call. Robert was scheduled to be seen on August 31st, but never made it. He was found dead in his room that morning. And it says he may still be here. The 8 other youths who lived in Robert's unit were interviewed September 2nd, just a few days after his death. In its report, DYS redacted all mentions of health-related matters, citing privacy laws. The report states 7 of the 8 youth mentioned that Robert had complained of the same thing. It is also clear that the interviewers asked the youth about Robert's medical concerns. And they all said that he had been complaining about chest pains and he was making appointments, but he wasn't being seen. So the fight continues. I don't know what's next.
Now, me and you did discuss you starting your own, foundation, nonprofit, whatever you want to call it, because like you said, this is something that you're going to be in for the rest of your life. Have you took that structure approach yet, or is still in the making?
It's still in the making. I have to get this right because I don't want anything overlooked, and I don't want anything. I just want it done right. It's not just my family. I want to help. I want to help people all across the world who's going through the same thing, because this thing is happening to a lot of our children. And the sad part about it is families think they can't do nothing about it. Like, no, you have to fight. You have to fight for your children. You have to fight for your family. You can't let these people get away with this stuff. Like, you absolutely cannot. It's a life loss. Don't let them throw away your family member or your child like that. You can't. That's your blood. He was my blood. Right. I refuse to let them get away with that and just sweep him under a rug. No. I'm gonna make sure they remember who he is. Because when I went to that facility, you know what they said to me? He was so intelligent. He was such a good child, like so intelligent and this, that, and other. Okay. if he was so intelligent and you felt like he was going to mean so much to this world one day when he got out there, I had to work a graduation ceremony today. I'm a photographer. I had to work a graduation ceremony today, taking pictures of kids graduating from school, and I just broke down. I completely broke down because this is the year my son was supposed to graduate. That's supposed to be my son graduating. That's supposed to be him. And that's what he wanted the most. He wanted to graduate. That's all he talked about. Graduating and going to college. Like, it messed me up. It really, really messed me up because all the things that he looked forward to the most, he didn't get to do. He looked forward to graduating. He looked forward to his 18th birthday. He looked forward to eating on Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff like that. Like, I didn't feel like doing anything for the holidays because why? Like, he would have been home right in time. And they think that with him having 2 months left to come home and for them to treat me the way that they have, like, I'm not going for it. I don't know nothing right now.
Right.
I don't know anything. And I know what I want to do, but I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to do it. I'm spending this time to do my research and read and find the resources I need to make sure this never happens again. If I have to protest every month for the rest of my life, then that's what I'm gonna have to do. But they're gonna have to give, and it don't end here. It don't end with this story. It's never gonna end because I'm gonna continuously fight for my son and for other children who's lost their life in the system. Like, these people, they don't care. They made sure they got their. I had to pay child support for him being in the facility. I had to pay child support for him being in the facility, and even after he was reported deceased, they still wanted them payments. You feel me? Like, they just got paid off last month, child support. They were still looking for their money, even though he was dead and gone. Now, why should I pay them for allowing my son to die in that facility and them not even care? Like, it's a lot of things I'm fighting for, and I'm not gonna give up.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna give up. I can't.
You're
absolutely
not gonna give up.
Yeah, I absolutely not. It's a wrap.
I know. Me and you have talked about this time and time again, and yeah, I know. So I did tell you I was gonna bring you on the show, and I wanted you to get some of that out and let people know what's going on and how your life has, drastically changed, and I know that this has changed you forever. But at the same time, I also know that when it's said and done, you're gonna make sure that this never happened to another child again.
Absolutely.
What happened to your son? And so that's fighting with a greater purpose. So, ladies and gentlemen, this this my people's right here from Cincinnati. You know, me and her rock real heavy. We definitely talk about a lot of different things, whether it's business, whether it's family, whether it's spiritual, all type of things. So I just want to thank her for coming on the Chatterbox with Jacob Tunes and
Thank
King
you.
Jacob. So I I also want to, she also know me by Jacob Tunes as well. So I had to throw it in there because that's my people's, like I said. Um, and I also want you guys, I have a friend that was on the chat with us, Reverend Bunny Miles, and she's a really, really, really great person, and I appreciate her tuning in, and and she knows a lot about directors of facilities and stuff like that. So I'll definitely reach out to her on your behalf and see what we can do to help you accomplish what you're trying to accomplish as well. So, but
Thank you
I
so
just
much.
I just want to thank you for coming on and blessing us. With 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 your story, but it's a blessing for you to be able to stand strong and talk about it because
Hmm.
most people in society, if this had happened to them and their family and their child, I don't know if they can be sane like you are, because it's really enough to drive somebody up the wall. But you hold it together well, so that's why I know God got His hands on you. I know
Oh
God
yeah,
got you covered, in more ways than you know. So
highly favored.
the spiritual
I
gifts that are being, yeah, oh yeah, I know the spiritual gifts is being presented to you. Use
am.
them
Hmm.
and keep on using them to inspire, embrace, to love, and to uplift. And just want to let you give your quick shout outs before we get out of here.
Um, I just want to say, I just want to say, shout out to you, King Jacob, and shout out to everybody. Shout out to everybody in my city, my kids, my mom, my sister, and just to tell everybody to tune in to WDLE Media every Tuesday and Thursday, 8 p.m., where myself and my co-host, um, Fame Juice, we sit down with people from all walks of life doing interviews and things like that. And I just tune in. You can tune in on Facebook at WDLE Media or YouTube. And that's it. That's all I have. I thank all of you who tuned in and just continue to pray for me, please. And these other families that's going through similar situations. I pray for them every night. I pray for everybody, and I'm confident God gonna work out everything. Um, that's what keeps me going is my confidence in God's will. That's it.
All right, you heard it first. The chat about with Jacob Toon, the loving Cassandra Wright. We do thank you for tuning in and continue to keep her in prayer and keep her family uplifted. I just got one saying before I leave. No matter what we go through, we are definitely blessed by the best.
Mhm.
So we love y'all. Peace and blessing. Cassandra, we love
Peace
you. And
love
and
you.
your boy Jake. Thank you. Your boy King Jake will definitely be in touch. And you have a
Yes,
blessed and a pleasant night.
you as well. Good night.
Okay, thank you.